you gotta go inwards. You can't go outwards to find motivation. You gotta go inwards, and that will lead to outward stuff to gain ideas and concepts and how you could do your stuff. But you gotta really go inwards. So I always recommend.
Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Mando's Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, aka the Breathing Goddess, and I'm here today with a special guest who is also a fellow podcast host. I am here today with Jared Carroll, the host of the Carroll Connection.
What's up? What's up? Thank you for having me on the podcast, Amanda.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So, who is Jared Carroll?
Loaded question. I don't think there's ever a full answer to who is so-and-so or who are you as a person. But currently, I have I guess you could say my 9-to-5 day job is kind of accounting finance related. And I kind of keep that off to the side. And that's just kind of what I do to earn a financial living at this point. But in my free time where I'm kind of pursuing a little bit more of my passion and purpose, I'm a podcaster currently. And I'm the host of the Carroll Connection, where I interview pretty much anyone who does something kind of cool. That's kind of the mindset, or someone who's gone through something, or someone who even has like a story or message to share. That's kind of the basis. And I walk them through talking about their life story, and it's kind of centered around mental health. So try to provide some value to my audience and to people from my guests' life, whether it's their friends, family, significant others, whoever, to kind of get some value and to see that we all go through different things and experience different things on different levels. And I'm a big believer in relating to other people. And there's usually one thing that we can all relate on if you just sit down and talk to someone. And actually, one of my most recent episodes, episode, I think it was 161 with Tucker Sullivan. He's a poem writer, and he wrote a book called Relate Another Human to Another. And it's basically the same concept about if you sit down with someone, you'll probably find at least one thing you could relate with them on. And it's just really about having those conversations. And it's the same thing with my podcast. It's just getting back to the conversations that we once had way back in the day before technology really became a thing. But now we just use it.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. So I'm curious if you can delve into a little bit of how starting the podcast was for you.
Yeah, so that's a long story. So it kind of started. So let's kind of backtrack. Let's give it time. So about 2018, I graduate from college. I get my degree. I get accepted into this work program that allows me to kind of travel. You get 2 years from the program, and then they offer a full-time position. So the first rotation, I was sent to Fort Worth, Texas. Loved it there. Job was pretty great. I loved Fort Worth itself. The city is just full of culture and diversity, and the food was amazing. Like, just a great place to be. And the issue that I ran into was as soon as I got out there, I kind of got into the routine and made new friends and was kind of doing a lot of the same stuff that I was doing back at home, just drinking, going out, partying on the weekends, just the same monotonous thing that I tried to get away from originally. And it kind of put me in more of like a depressed mindset where I was like, well, I'm in a new city with new friends and a new job, and I'm supposed to be doing good, but I'm not. I'm honestly miserable. Like, I just didn't really enjoy my life. My fitness was really down. And I took it upon myself after I came home for the first holiday, saw as many people as I could. I really overextended myself to try to see people that honestly didn't hit me up when I was away, that didn't come see me when I was away. And so when I got back to Texas on January 2019 for the new year, I kind of made it like an oath to myself to like get my fitness right, to stop drinking. And from like January through like almost to the summer, I want to take July or August, I was like alcohol free. I did morning workouts. Like, I want to say it was like almost like 20 or so pounds. And I just really like focused on my fitness to make the best out of the situation that I was in. Cause I couldn't leave the situation, but it was important for me to experience living somewhere else away from people that I knew to kind of cultivate a new identity for myself. And then after I left Texas, my second rotation was in Augusta, Georgia. And then this is where things lead into the podcast. Was I got to Augusta, Georgia, and the place was just not great. The work was terrible. It was a very toxic work environment, and I just wasn't a fan of Augusta, Georgia, to be honest. It's a little too south for me, and if you know what I mean by south, it's the South, and just the whole work environment was not conducive to like career building and adding to like my value as a person. Late nights in the office, you wake up, you go back in, you go home, you go back in, you go like you're literally some days you're missing out in the gym. And that was like what was getting me through this period of my life. So it kind of forced me to confront the fact that I hated this job and I needed to quit. So I even remember like Googling like the night before I quit, because I didn't even put in 2 weeks. I just quit. I literally Googled, am I just having a bad day? Just to try to get some like validation if I was like what I was going through at the time. But if every day is a bad day, there's something else that's kind of going on there. So I quit the job and I never felt happier. Like weight was literally lifted off my shoulders pretty much. And I had no job, no plan, like nothing in front of me. And I tried to get a job back in the Mass, Rhode Island area, which is where I live currently. And I've lived most of my life. I tried to get a job back here, but this is pre-COVID. So most places are not doing online interviews and stuff like that. So that was difficult. And I really tried to do that to kind of like appease my parents at the time. Cause like it's kind of hard sell to be like, hey, mom and dad, I'm kind of quitting my adult job that I just got after college. Like I'm moving back home. Like it was a tough sell. But I believed in myself. I knew that wasn't for me and my mental health was at stake. And I quite frankly would rather have been dead than kept doing that. Like that's literally where my mindset was. And I left there. And then that weekend I packed everything up and moved back home. And in the midst of packing up, I started reflecting on like, what do I do? Like what do I do that brings like value to the world? Cause like growing up, I played football. That was like my identity. So pretty much after high school, I lost my identity. And through college, I found alcohol and partying and drugs. And that's where a lot of this started and then rolled into Texas and Georgia, where it resurfaced it again. And that really inspired me to look within, look myself in the mirror and figure out what can I do. And at the time, I was really getting into Joe Rogan. I really loved like the idea of long format podcasts of just talking to people and like they're having drinks of whiskey, smoking weed. They're just talking. He's talking to scientists and like athletes and all these different people. I'm like, I could do that. Like I could do something like that. And also I would like to give credit to like my older brother at the time. He had just started like to be a Twitch streamer, like streaming like Fortnite stuff. And I just thought that was like cool because like he was doing something outside of himself. And it was kind of creating like almost like a brand. And that just inspired me in with the combination of Joe Rogan, where I started researching podcast equipment, like how to do a podcast. Where does this all start from? And the whole Carroll Connection name actually comes back from when me and my brothers used to play football in our cul-de-sac. One of us would be the quarterback and stuff like that. And then that rolled into playing indoor football. Same thing. Usually I was the quarterback at the time. If I passed it to my brothers, my brother called it the CC, the Carroll Connection. And that name resurfaced. I was like, because I thought Joe Rogan Experience, the Carroll Connection. Similar kind of vibe to it, but it's me. And that led me to kind of be inspired by that. And like, I was really going through mental health stuff at the time. So I really wanted to like make it like unified under mental health where people could just relate to that topic. Like it doesn't have to be divisive. Like, and it's no politics. There's no left, right. There's just it's not teach you how to get rich or anything like it's just real life. I'm talking to real life people about real life shit. And that was like the goal, was to just have conversations with people and make connections. That was really the goal of that podcast. And that's where the creation of it stemmed from.
Okay. Wow. And would you say you've been able to make great connections with the podcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually just hit 4 full years of doing the podcast, about a week or so ago. And to say that I've done this for 4 years and over, I think next week will be like episode 162, is like crazy. Like I never would have thought I would have made it this far. Like, and if you think back to when I created this, if I gave you that timeline, when I got to Georgia and left, it was around 2019. It was like October 2019 when I quit that job. I moved back home through November and December. Really, November is where I created the podcast and started recording and stuff. And then I dropped the episode in November and recorded through December, through February. And then March came along, March 2020. The pandemic happened. And that really would have derailed my podcast if I wasn't I think I was like 17 or 16 episodes in at that time. And the statistic that I really heard over and over was a lot of podcasters quit after 10 episodes. And I knew I just wanted to get over 10. And then I got over 10 and I was cruising, and then COVID happened. So it really had to make me pivot on that podcast. But if I started any later, there's a good chance I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now talking about the creation of the Carroll Connection.
Wow. So did you still continue doing podcasts during COVID?
Yeah, funny enough, the first month and like a half, that was when everyone was like scared. No one really knew what COVID was at the time. And it was understandable that people didn't want to meet in person, that out of respect for their families and their loved ones who might be immunocompromised and stuff like that. They were not doing in person, and neither was I. But we all had bubbles at that time. And my cousins were kind of in that bubble with me. And they were just on episode 14. So we had done stuff recently. So what I did was I created a little mini series called The Quarantine Connection. And on that, we'd record for like a little bit. And I have like 5 episodes out there that we did. And we would just talk about random stuff from like Tom Brady leaving the Patriots, the Tiger King, to stuff that we watched on Netflix. My little cousin at the time was still in high school. So he's talking about school online, what that's like. That was what it was I used to like supplement interviews. And it helped me just work that muscle of podcasting, to keep recording, to keep making content, even though the content wasn't as meaningful as my actual Carroll Connection episodes. I always say if I wasn't doing that, I don't know if I would have kept doing it after the fact, because that kept me recording and it kept me motivated to keep making content.
Wow. I did not know that. The Quarantine Connection. I will have to look that up.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a cool little mini series. It was I even made like a whole new cover art for it with like a mask on the cover art and stuff. I don't even know if I have the picture, if I could show it on here. Let me go to my albums really quick as we're talking. Oh, here it is.
Wow.
See. This will come up on the screen.
Oh my God, and it's an actual mask.
Yeah. Obviously background on the camera, but that was like the thought process was just really make it centered around COVID, but like we're still connecting regardless of the fact. And it was with my family, so it wasn't like it wasn't going to be controversial with people that we were hanging out and doing stuff.
I love that you still recorded though, because so many people would have used that as an excuse to stop.
Yeah, they would have given, I think COVID stopped a lot of people from pursuing their goals, whether it's podcasting, YouTubing, streaming. Probably streaming went up a little bit, but like a lot of people were derailed off that.
Yeah, I feel like even career type goals, because colleges changed, everything changed. And that would have been a time when it would have been easy for you to throw in the towel and you didn't.
Yeah, and I just kind of believed in what I was doing at the time. Like I just felt kind of called to it, and I just was like, kind of like, screw it. Like, why not? Like I'm not doing anything else, obviously, with COVID. Like I still had my job, luckily, but I was like, why not make a few episodes and just keep that muscle working. And then eventually, as we got closer to summer, people were more accepting to kind of do the interviews and stuff again. And then it picked back up, and it was business as usual pretty much after that.
Wow, that's great though. So I'm curious, when you were first starting up the podcast, did you run into any issues with like learning how to do it? Or was that smooth sailing for you? How was that process?
Yeah, I had no fucking clue what I was doing, to be honest. I was lost. Like trying to Google. I'll say I'm pretty good at researching. I like to always give my dad credit for the kind of teaching me how to be like a good researcher, or like a thorough researcher at least. And because I'm big on like do your own research, like no matter what it is, like whether it's like for medical stuff or like for your career, or you want to do something with social media, whatever it is, like do your research. Whether you're going to go buy a car or something, do your research, like find the right stuff to make the right purchase or make the right move in your career. Yeah, so when I started, I kind of had somewhat of an idea that I needed a laptop and I needed a microphone to record it, at least two. And I remember at the time when I got back, I created the cover art, and then I had the name already picked, and I kind of had the idea, because like the hardest thing they always say with podcasting too is finding your niche. Like, what are you going to talk about, and who are you going to talk about it like to? Like, who are you talking to? And I'm big, like you got to have like something that unites the theme of the podcast. Sometimes, like it's hard to continue when you don't have like what's I'm like a mission statement, even for like a company. It's hard to like move forward when you're not pursuing that mission statement over and over. Same thing when you're writing papers and stuff. You got to have a point. And once I nailed that part, it was just doing the right research, finding the right equipment. I started with like Blue Yeti microphones, and I got like a MacBook because I wanted to use GarageBand because I was familiar with GarageBand through high school and stuff. So I knew that was probably the easiest way to go. And I'll never forget, at the time, I went to Best Buy and they were having like a sale where you sign up for a credit card. And if you spend this much money, you get 10% back once you pay off the bill. And I had the money because there was like a relocation service from my old job that I just quit that I got to keep. So it was like, I have the money, bought the laptop straight up, paid the bill right away, got like enough money back just to buy all the equipment where I didn't have to spend any extra money. And I started with the laptop and two microphones. And my first episode I recorded with my buddy Eric in his garage, and we just let it rip.
Wow, that's amazing. But so you were able to figure it out by doing the research?
Yeah, I mean, you got to know what you're looking for too. Like it's hard when you don't know how to do a thing, but like podcasting, it's really just getting some equipment. It's basic stuff. Like you could I remember reading, you could literally, people like, do it with your phone. It's the easiest thing you could do. Your phone has a microphone, you can record. Like and this is like, you got to think a little, when I'm doing this is before COVID. So a lot of this stuff isn't like Zoom and WebEx, or Skype is kind of there, but like people weren't like as using that as much as they did once COVID started happening. So I'm thinking kind of like, I don't want to use my phone. I want to get some microphone. I have the money to do it. Like I want to like get like the feel for it and try to use the equipment. And USB microphones are like the easiest thing. You plug them in and you just let it go. So once I kind of figured out that, I would say the hardest part was trying to figure out the audio, like trying to like make sure you sound just right, not too loud, not too soft. You make your guest sound just right, not too loud, not too soft. And learning the technology aspect was the biggest curve, I would say. Not even doing like the actual equipment research. That's a whole different type of research, but like the equipment, like the actual, that takes a lot of time to figure out. And then you're going to go through growing pains. You're going to have episodes that just audibly just aren't that great, but you need those episodes. You need the episodes where you struggle through and you power through those to learn. You make the adjustment and you're going to keep growing. And with my podcast, that's what I've done every single year. It's always adding a new piece of equipment. Like I was telling you, kind of like off the podcast, where I just bought a new camera recently. Now I have 3 cameras. Like I didn't have any cameras when I started. I have new microphones. I have a roadcaster, I have a backdrop, I have merch, and I have different like editions of merch. I have like three different shirts, a sweatshirt that I made hats. Like I've gone through the process of like really investing into my brand. And that's a huge thing. You got to invest in yourself at the end of the day. It's like your job could fire you tomorrow. Like, might as well take what you can and invest in yourself. Obviously, given the economy, be smart with your money. If you got to pay your rent, you got to pay your bills, do the smart stuff. Like, as the accounting finance guy, I'm going to tell you to do the right thing first. But once you collect enough savings, invest in yourself, especially if you want to do something like that's your passion. Because a lot of us don't find passion within our work, and that's kind of where that desire to find something outside of work led me to create the podcast.
Okay. I was only asking so many questions about leading up to your podcast because I had a very, very difficult time with the tech side of things. So I've listened to a lot of your episodes, especially your individual ones. I like those a lot. Just a lot of different quotes and different perspectives you have on life that I resonate pretty heavily with. And there's a few I'm hoping we can touch upon and delve a little deeper into. One thing that you had a podcast on was something called Don't Force It. And you touched upon not forcing things. Can you summarize that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think it's actually funny that another person says that they actually like my solos when I always say on the solos that people don't like my solos, and then I have people actually like, yeah, I do enjoy your solos to get your. I'm like, what the hell? I just like I don't know. I
Listen
just
to almost every single solo.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style of episode. So like you're definitely getting a different side of me versus like, you're usually in the podcast it's the interviewer, and then obviously you're getting more of my opinion on something because I usually have a topic. But for Don't Force It, what that episode kind of stemmed from was I was so tired of just doing solos just to like record content if someone canceled, because that's usually what happens. If on the side from like my birthday episodes or like year in review episodes, or maybe I did one episode after my dog passed away about called The Dog's Love, like ones that have kind of meaning are will stand alone, but there's sometimes episodes where I have a guest scheduled but they need to reschedule for whatever reason. I will sometimes do a solo instead. And I was kind of getting tired of doing that because it just felt like I was forcing it for some content. And I was just telling my girlfriend, I was just like, I don't want to force another solo episode. And then like I was thinking all week, and like if something comes to me, I'll post it. And I was like, I could make a whole podcast about not forcing it. And it's ironic in like theory, but like the point of it was like, don't just force stuff to get it out there for especially content making. Like the Gary V's of the world, they're always going to tell you content. And in some form or fashion, that's true. That content's going to work if you just post a lot, post often. You're going to gain traction eventually. And if you're not, then you have to pivot and do something different. But what I found is that can be very draining, and you're really diluting the quality of the content for quantity at that point, in my opinion. And I'd rather have quality over quantity, because at the end of the day, if I want to look at my quantity and be like, these are like subpar videos or subpar podcasts, I'm just not going to feel as like satisfied with that work. So I'd rather do something of quality. So if I have something I really want to talk about, that's where I'm not forcing myself to talk about it. I just do it naturally. It's kind of do what comes naturally almost. And that episode was just letting people know that if you're in a similar situation, don't feel obligated to do something. Because I'm obviously a mental health advocate on my podcast. So I'm also advocating for your mental health here is like, take those breaks, take the time off. Like you got to, and I also put the caveat in there, you got to know when you got to just like buckle the bootstraps and just get after it. Sometimes you just got to get after it, like no doubt, but know yourself well enough that you're able to kind of like pump the brakes, relax, reflect, and you don't need to do an episode every single week. That was kind of like what I was telling myself. Contrary to like conversations that I've had with Wally on the Ever Changing Vibe, he was doing like podcasts every single week, like, and it was to like really work that muscle of being a podcaster. For me, that just didn't work. Like I didn't want to do that over and over because it made me want to do it less. And I really wanted to value the time I was behind the microphone. I wanted to make those conversations really meaningful because for me, I feel like I'd worked that muscle enough where I felt really confident in my abilities to interview people and have conversations that I wanted to make them worthwhile versus just having them to have them. And that's where that whole concept of don't force it came through is you don't force it to just move that muscle or to make a bunch of quantity or make a bunch of videos that you're going to post. Do it because you actually want to do it. Do it because you enjoy doing the process. And you see that a lot with content creators. They're just like posting a ton of clips, posting a ton of videos to try to go viral and get followers. Like that's not, in my opinion, it's not a recipe to do this. Like if you're doing that, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You should have like a motive or a goal in mind to do that. And if you want to be rich and famous, I mean, I guess that's a goal, but I just don't think that that's like sustainable long term. You're always going to want more, and like that at the end of the day is innately kind of selfish.
I agree. So I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
How would you, might not really relate in terms of podcasting or content, but you did mention in the episode, I might be butchering exactly what you said, but along the lines of even if you're planning on working out, if you just are in the right headspace, don't force it. How would you suggest finding the balance of when not to force it and when you know you got to buckle down?
Depends what your goals are. So if your goals, you have a specific, like say you're on a weight loss journey, you should probably know that you should probably not take too many days off, because you take one day off, it's going to snowball into maybe 2 days off, then 3 days off, or I'm going to have that piece of cake at night, and then you're going to have another piece of cake the next night, or you're going to have that ice cream the next night. So like I definitely, it's goal specific, but I'm always in the mindset of not everyone has to, you don't have to be six packs or slim waist or big butt. Like you don't gotta chase these things. Like what social media puts out there, it's cool, it's great to have those things, but what people don't really see on the side of that with a lot of those influencers is they put a lot of work into that, and that's their thing. Like, and sometimes there's trauma and stuff involved into why they pursue that, but for me, I look at it as like I enjoy fitness, but fitness is never going to be my life. It's not something that I like. I'm not going to be a fitness like trainer or advocate. I'm not going to be ripped all the like. I fluctuate. Like it's like right now, my goal is to start my morning workouts again and like lose some weight. But like a couple months ago, I was not. I was just casually working out, like kind of taking my foot off the gas. Like it's ebbs and flows. Like it just depends on what you're looking for. In terms of fitness, you got to really, in terms of fitness, you really got to like buckle down into like what you actually want to do fitness wise. And for me, I'm comfortable with the way that my body is and the way that like I work out. Like I definitely work out anywhere from like 2 to 4 times a week, and that works for me. But when I'm trying to lose weight, I get closer to 5 times, and I increase the protein that I'm doing, and I increase the water intake, and there's like different things that you got to like do to pursue your goal in terms of fitness. So taking your foot off the gas really depends on that goal. So that's what I would say to that person is if you're in that fitness realm and you're trying to pursue that fitness goal, make sure you define the fitness goal and you're not just like, I'm trying to lose weight. Well, I think I was listening to like Sean was actually talking about one of his videos. Someone was talking about fasting, and the person didn't know what they were fasting for. It's kind of like that with fitness. Like if you don't know what your goal is with fitness, that's kind of an issue. It's kind of a big issue, especially when you don't have a specific plan and oriented to that goal with fitness.
That is so true. I love all that. I was honestly just curious because I really resonated with the don't force it, but I was curious how you would balance the two. But I think that makes so much sense as to what your actual goal is with everything, whether it's fitness, whether it's content, whether it's podcasts. What is your goal in doing whatever it is?
Yeah, I always try to like during the winter. That's where I kind of like I pay more attention to my fitness since I'm locked indoors more. I'm lucky enough to have like a little home gym that really does like work for me. So like I got access to that 24/7 no matter what the weather is. But because during the summer it's easier to go for runs outside, and um I'm just a little bit less focused on losing weight at that point because it's typically sometimes easier for me in the summer to lose weight. But the winter is really where I want to buckle down because it gets darker early. You want to eat, you want to do less, you want to be lazy. And like that's kind of like the opposite mindset for me as well. This is the time to grind. This is the grind time. So by the time summer comes, you could take your foot off the gas. And that might be the same for a lot of people, especially in the New England areas. Use the winter as your grind period, especially with fitness. Like not much else is going on. Like slow it down a little bit, focus on what you need to do, lay out a plan, and attack it that way. And that typically works for me is using that format.
That makes a lot of sense. It's all about kind of like the season of life that you're in. Sean and I have talked a lot about that, and about how you might have very different priorities in one season of your life versus another. Whereas whatever it may be, whether it's fitness, whether it's career related, anything, might be very heavily important this month, but next month maybe it's not. It's always fluctuating.
Yeah, 100%. Like I would say I pulled my hamstring back in January, and it's been like I pulled it playing football, and it nagged me the entire year where it completely derailed my fitness, where like I couldn't really work out, I couldn't really run, and it changed everything. And I also had to pivot in my life a little bit more and figure out kind of like what some of my next steps are. And like I paid off student loans, and like I looked at other things in my life to work on, and really worked on the podcast and focused on that because I couldn't invest in my fitness. And now that I did PT recently, I've been playing football again, and I'm starting to get a little bit of that strength back in the hamstring. Now I feel called to do my fitness again. Like I gained some weight, and I'm a little upset about it, but I'm like, I know what works. I've done it before. I've done it already twice in my life where I set down the schedule, I wake up early, I have the meal plan, and I do it. It's once you find the thing that works, you do it, but you don't have to do it all the time because who wants to eat chicken and rice and broccoli every day? Like sometimes I love Taco Bell. Sometimes I want to go get a Crunch Wrap. Like sometimes like Death by chocolate cake from Greg's in Rhode Island, like in East Providence. It's like sometimes I like to indulge.
I've never
like,
had that cake, but you are not the first person to mention that cake.
I'm a big chocolate person. Like it's a lot of chocolate. It's very rich. It's very rich, but I love it. It's like if it's one thing for my birthday I want every year, it's a Death by chocolate cake. It's the only thing I want.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big birthday like gift for. I don't really want shit for my. Anything that someone could give me, I can get for myself, and I don't want them to spend money on that. Like just like appreciating the time we spend together, or like doing something specific, or if you want to buy me the cake, buy me the cake. Like other than that, like don't buy. I'd rather not have a gift at that point.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Oh my gosh. Everything that you're saying here reminds me of another quote that you mentioned. I don't remember on which podcast, but you said, I took a step back, not a step backwards, and how you kind of reevaluated your systems, what was working, what wasn't working. Can you explain a little bit about what made you realize you needed to take a step back and not backwards?
Yeah, I actually will give credit to my girlfriend because we were like kind of talking about this, and like um she kind of helped me put that into words almost, where I was like kind of like I didn't feel like I was moving backwards in terms of progress, at least with a lot of stuff I was doing. Maybe fitness wise, I was taking that step back, and mentally it was a little bit bothering me because like I couldn't work out the way I wanted to. But I had to take that step back because prior to this year, I was like thinking about getting a house and all these different things with the podcast. And I was like, my fitness was really good before I pulled my hamstring. Like I was doing great. I was lifting like some of the heaviest weights I had lifted in a while. And then I met my girlfriend at the beginning of January and pulled my hamstring, and life started to change. The housing market really wasn't favorable to buying a house. And I had to take the step back to analyze my life. Like, all right, a house probably isn't a smart investment for myself right now. This is not something I need right now. Something I want, but it's not what I need. And obviously being an accountant, I'm very aware of debt. I'm very aware of loans. I was like, student loans, they were about to pay off this, they were about to kick back up in the summertime. I was like, I need to get rid of these. I don't want this hanging on my head anymore. I set like 3 payment methods, knocked it out in the summer, paid it all off, and I created new merch. I created new tie-dye shirts for my podcast and like my 3rd iteration of shirts. And I really planned on having more like genuine conversations again. I got back to really enjoying the podcast the way it's supposed to be. And that was a lot of it because the injury really forced me to step back from my fitness, but it also made me take that step back in my own life to just look around of like what's working, what's not, and where do I need to pour a little bit more into to ultimately get to where I want to. And I would say like this year has been like one of the best years that I've had in a really long time. And ironically, my fitness has been not the best either. So like I love fitness. It's been a part of my life since I was in 8th grade. Like I got introduced to powerlifting, and to not have it this year, but still have one of the best years I've ever had is reassuring that fitness is important, but it's not my everything. Like it's important to be fit, it's important to be healthy, but to know your balance. Like I want to be, like I said, I want to have a crunch wrap, but I know how to have chicken, rice, and broccoli every day and power through that and have protein shakes in the morning and limit the calorie intake. Like I know these things. I'm aware of the stuff on a very like macro level. Like I don't know all the details on like the micro stuff and how to do that, but on an overall level, I know it. So without having that fitness stuff to really get a lot of this stuff done in my life. And I always like to shout out like my relationship has allowed me to really invest in myself again. I really have a partner that believes in me and believes in like my vision for not only my podcast, but like my future. And like that's been the biggest blessing in my life that I didn't see coming. Like, and if you knew me prior to it, that my whole mindset of relationships was kind of fucked up. Like I just gone through a lot of bad uh experiences in dating to now to finally have someone that constantly invests in what I do just makes me more like grateful and more motivated to pursue what I'm pursuing because I know I have someone that listens to my podcast regularly, that enjoys my podcast regularly, gives me ideas, supports my dreams and visions for the future. And having a person like that in your life can help you pretty much accomplish almost anything. And that's really what's driven me forward by taking that step back is having her by my side to reevaluate, but also myself to take those steps forward, to plan the next steps. And like I said, I got the camera this year and just like a couple other things that I have working on the side that I'm not going to say live on the podcast. I could probably tell you after some of the stuff I'm working on, but I have some like plans to really take some big leaps going to 2024. So there's stuff that I'm working on that I'm like really excited about, and it wouldn't be possible without taking that step back. But like I said, it's not a step back. It's not a step backwards. It's just a step back to analyze really. So that's kind of like the vision with why I said that.
That's beautiful. I love all of that. So, do you have any advice if someone is looking to take a step back, but they're not sure where they begin with taking that step back?
Yeah, I got to give credit to Wally from the Ever Changing Vibe because he got me back into journaling recently. Hearing him and Sean's conversation, talking about journaling a lot, and I listen to Ever Changing Vibe pretty constantly, just like I like to see what Wally's up to and just to hear his takes on things. And he's really was talking about journaling constantly and like really making like a committed effort, I should say, to do it. And I learned how to really journal through therapy. I was in like a year and a half of like cognitive behavioral therapy, and that helped me get through a lot of my stuff. But it taught me how to like really write down my thoughts and like be present with my thoughts. And I would say, as silly as it is, as like corny as it might be, get an app, get a journal, get a notebook, whatever it is, and write down your thoughts, whatever you're thinking. And start there. Start analyzing your thoughts. Like, what are you thinking about? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Like very basic stuff. And just do that day by day, day by day, day by day. And the more you get your thoughts out, the more you get used to like thinking about things. And once you start thinking about things, you might start thinking about, oh, I kind of like doing this. Maybe I should start looking a little bit into that. Maybe I should go check out if there's a podcast about this. Maybe I should go check a YouTube channel out about this. Maybe there's a book on this. Like it's taking the little steps, but it's really sorting through your ideas, sorting through your mind. Because a lot of us, our minds are cluttered with a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be there, especially with all the stimuli that we get through the day through our phones and just real life. So taking that step back requires you to go inwards. And a lot of people don't want to go inwards, so they go outwards and will go external to like watching TV on Netflix, or watching Netflix, I should say, or binge watching shows or whatever. Like you gotta go inwards. You can't go outwards to find motivation. You gotta go inwards, and that will lead to outward stuff to gain ideas and concepts and how you could do your stuff. But you gotta really go inwards. So I always recommend journaling to people.
Okay. I think that's great. I agree though as well. I've been journaling more myself, and it just helps get your thoughts out there, whether they're good ones, bad ones, neutral ones, random things that you're thinking about. I can't remember for the life of me off the top of my head, but we have like a crazy amount of thoughts per day.
Yeah, you got to get it out there. It feels better to talk about stuff. Like, and if you feel better, maybe even get one of those apps where you could talk, like just hit record and talk into it if you want to just do it that way. Like there's so many different ways that you could do that. And it's funny enough that I mentioned that because like I remember when right before I started the podcast, every time I would have a conversation with someone, it wouldn't be surface level. It'd just get really deep about something. I'd be like, dude, like this could be a podcast. Like this is what my point is. Anything could really be a podcast if you like actually like put value into the conversation. And that's the point. Is like there's a ton of value in this world that we all provide. And my goal on my podcast, as best as I can, is to highlight the good that's at least around me, my community, and the connections that I get through people that might listen to an episode and they'll recommend someone, or someone will listen to an episode and want to come on because they got something they want to talk about. And it just keeps growing that way. Like, and that's like the cool thing is once you just start something, that ball can start rolling and rolling and rolling, and you never know. Like here I am 4 years later, still doing the damn thing.
Wow. Did you ever think you would do it for this long?
No, not a chance. Like once the real commitment came in with like the roadcaster and the camera, then I'm like, all right, I'm in this. Like the microphones, like the Blue Yeti ones were like very basic where I'm like, if it doesn't do anything for me, at least like I tried it and it's fine. But like once I invested, like I'm not even gonna put a dollar amount on like the amount I've spent on this podcast and stuff like that. But every dollar has been worth it. Like it's one of those things that's like I would never take this for granted. This has been like the greatest experience that I've like ever had in my life. And it's unique. It's to have these conversations recorded and documented and be able to share people's life stories and the things that they've gone through, and to do that for their families as well. Like that's what I care about. It's the people around me. It's the people that listen and support the people that I interview. And I don't care if it goes viral. I don't care who listens to it. Like I don't care for the clips. Like it's really about the positive nature of the conversations. Like not enough of us have that conversation on a genuine level, and it's about getting back to that. And you don't meet too many genuine people in your day-to-day life sometimes. So to meet so many genuine people through the podcast has been one of the biggest blessings I've ever received.
That's amazing. Wow. I will agree though. It's very unique. I'm still newly into it, but I've enjoyed it. I really have. It's ironic too, because we're getting closer to the end of the year, but had anyone told me at the start of the year that I would have started a podcast, never would have believed them. Never.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing. It's like, if you told me back in high school me, it's like, hey dude, you're gonna have a podcast one day and talk to people. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I ain't doing that. I'm so introverted. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, but here I am spending hours with people, interviewing them, talking to them about like the personal details of their life. I've had people cry on the podcast. Like I really get into it with some people and talking about real life. And I think as weird as that sounds, like it's kind of validating that they feel comfortable enough to cry because it means that I've created a space that they feel safe in. And that's always my goal, is to create a space that people feel safe to express themselves and who they are individually. And there's not enough places like that out there. So to have a space and a platform like I do to allow people to be themselves, it's pretty cool.
I completely agree. There is not enough genuine conversations being had today, whether it's in person or virtually. There's just, it doesn't exist. You know, even like you mentioned, you wanted a more valuable life, something outside of your 9 to 5 and outside of drinking and going out and something more.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us get caught up in that day-to-day lifestyle. And I like to put it on the record too, is like there's nothing wrong with working 9 to 5s. That's the one thing I've not been a fan of with social media, is the glorification of entrepreneurship. Like there's a lot of negatives that come with it. Most of the people who go out and pursue that don't succeed. Like I'm kind of more on the realist side with some of that. And maybe this is just the accounting part of me talking, but like you gotta like plan your life a little bit. You gotta budget. Like you gotta like think about how you're gonna afford things. Like to just like jump into stuff doesn't work for a lot of people. Like I'm a big planner. I plan everything, every detail, all the time. Like I can be spontaneous, but I love organization. Like I'm very big on that, and for me that really works. Obviously, there's going to be people who don't resonate with that, but I think for a lot of people, having some sort of organized thought when you're going to do something is going to be way more beneficial than just like randomly just attacking something. You're going to learn either way, but I think you might have a better chance of learning and sticking with it if you go in with a little bit more of a planned attack. And I can imagine that's what you did with your podcast. I remember before when you came on my podcast, you talked a little bit about it. You got some ideas. Like you were doing the organization part. You're working through ideas. You're getting some information. You're sorting through what might work for you, what might not work for you, and that's important. Is to have that time to do those things. And if you want to be spontaneous and just go for it, do that. It might work for you, but my advice is always like attack it with some sort of plan.
No, I agree. I think there should be a little bit of a balance. I believe in some spontaneity, depending on what it is, depending on the circumstance, but with a balance of planning and realistic. And I agree with what you said about the 9 to 5, because entrepreneurship has been glorified. I feel like even so much more in 2023, but not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. The 9 to 5 jobs, people still need to do them.
You need to pay your bills. Like you need to support your families. Like people just eliminate real life when they start talking about this stuff because they're talking to a camera. They're not talking to a person. Like you got to like actually remove like kind of like the blindfold almost. Like, hey, like especially now more than ever, like people are struggling. Like the economy is tough. Inflation's real. Like the prices of gas are really high. The prices of groceries are really like things are really tough right now. Like, so to sit there and tell people to just sacrifice on their career to pursue a passion might not resonate with a lot of people because they might have kids. They might have someone depending on them. Like you got to think of these things and cultivating the right advice for people. What I always say is what I did was take what I made from that job and invested in myself. I worked until I got to a place where I felt comfortable enough. Also, I was pushed into that space by the toxic work environment, but I also had saved enough money where I could invest a little bit into a side passion. And it could just be a hobby. It could just be like something that doesn't necessarily make money. And it might one day, but don't go into it with that thought process is this is going to break me away from my 9 to 5. This is going to make me my money. Do it because you actually enjoy it. And I think creators across the board will always say that is do the thing because you actually enjoy it. Because once you start doing it for the money, all the joy is going to go out of it eventually. And it's going to go back to what you were doing before. It's just work.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. But I love how you mentioned you wanted something more. You wanted something outside of the 9 to 5. And you might have even talked about this more on a different podcast than right here. But I resonated heavily to that, even not even looking to get a name for myself, make any money, just do something outside of, I'm super into fitness, but okay, you go to the gym, you're a paralegal. What else? I knew I was meant for more. And for years, I used to post videos about on my Snapchat, like different perspectives, these long random rambles of me. And I was like, why am I just sharing this with like 10 of my close friends? I want to share my perspective and other people's perspectives just on different things and maybe help a couple people. And it's something different than going to the gym, than going to dinner, than working as a paralegal. I feel more fulfillment. Whether I'm getting anything out of this, I feel more fulfilled.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes you're kind of just called to do something, and it's up to you whether you answer the call. Like with the podcast, it almost felt divine sometimes, like where things were happening and it felt like I was in the right place at the right time when I was especially when I was having conversations in the early episodes where people are sharing stuff that I would have never known, and I wouldn't have known if I didn't ask, or people were reaching out to come be on the podcast because they saw something that was really inspiring to them and they want to share their story. And it always was like I said, it just felt divine. It just felt like it was supposed to do it. And I don't know how long I'll do it. I don't know how long I'll have that feeling to drive. I think change is always good, and this will probably change into something eventually. I don't know what, but until that point, it's the continual like just process of to grind it out and to have the conversations. And now it's to the point where I hold responsibility for carrying all these life stories. Like I have to keep going. It's not just my story now. It's everyone that's been a part of my podcast story. Like it's part of everyone's journey now, and I have to continue that forward. And I always reference episode 2 with my late grandfather, James Carroll Sr. He passed away in 2020 from cancer, and that episode, he was recently had been diagnosed with brain cancer, and it was terminal. So he knew he was going to pass away, and I got the most authentic, real version of himself because he had accepted he was going to pass away. He knew it, and to get that conversation recorded, documented, and to have his belief in that podcast because we had met like prior to me starting because I quit my job and we went to my cousin's football game like some random afternoon, and I just told him what I was going to do, and he was just like all about it. He just was like, "This is really cool, and like you should definitely pursue that." And I always reference his famous quote was to take a chance. Like I even got it like tattooed on me, and like I got his signature under it and everything. And like that whole mantra of you just got to take the chance. You just, if you're doing something that you don't want to do or you want to try something new, take the chance. What else do you have to lose? Because what you're gonna have to deal with if you don't take the chance is a whole lot of regret, and you don't want to deal with that, especially late in life. You don't want to have regrets later in life. So why not go for the thing? Why not try the thing? People might laugh. People might think it's cringy. People might think it's corny. Who cares? Like you grow through it. What's the thing? It's you go through it to grow through it. Like you just gotta keep going through it and constantly doing the thing. And it's consistency. It flows into that topic. You got to be consistent with it. Like if you're not consistent with it, it's gonna fall apart. Like, and if you don't believe in it on top of that, no one around you is gonna believe in it. So you, to a certain extent, especially early on, you got to be a little delusional about it. You got to be like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be really good at this, because that almost like motivated delusion is what's gonna power you through all those like uncomfortable growing phases, and you just can't let those phases stop you from pursuing that. And you might find out by doing that thing, you might not enjoy that thing. There might be something else directly correlated to that process that you enjoy. Maybe you don't enjoy podcasting, but you enjoy video editing. Go do video editing then. And like there's like different things that are going to open up for you by trying something new. And there's different skills that you're going to learn by trying something new. And those new skills are going to kind of like snowball and help you grow as an individual. 'Cause at the end of the day, if you're not growing, by default, you're regressing.
That is true. I love how you mentioned you have to be a little delusional, because I have done so many different manifestation workshops, manifestation classes, read up on it. And I've heard a lot of things about you have to be a little delusional when manifesting, when trying to achieve what you want to achieve, as if you already have achieved it almost, and believing a little bit of that delusion that you did achieve it.
Yeah, you got to see it. You got to like visualize it as best you can. Obviously, everyone's visualization is going to be a little different depending on how their brain works, how they process what they see. But in terms of like the manifestation, like you got to just believe in it. You got to know it's coming. Like I always like even growing up, one of my favorite sayings was everything happens for a reason. Like you just got to believe it's all happening for some specific reason, whether it's positive or negative, it's happening for a reason. And you got to accept that and just keep going. Like life's not going to stop just because you're having a bad day. Like you got to have the bad day, get up the next day and try again. Like it's having a positive mindset, and it's hard. It's really hard. I've been in those really depressed states. I've been around people who have different mental illnesses and they struggle to get themselves out. But if you don't think you're going to get better, you're not going to get better. Like if you constantly tell yourself that things are bad, then things are going to be bad. Like you bring into your life what you think and what you say. Like this is why it's like talking about things out loud, and like even the music we listen to and the content we watch influences what we can manifest, because we're being influenced by other words and other people's thoughts. Like everything we say and everything we believe and talk about will influence on some level what happens in our life and what we attract. Everything's energy. You just got to be aware of that energy, and to your best of your ability, work through that. Because obviously there's going to be times where life's a little bit difficult. Like you're going to lose family members, you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose pets, you're going to go through breakups, you're going to lose jobs. Like these things are going to happen. But how do you overcome that? Like some of the most successful people are the most resilient people. You got to keep going through it. Like as shitty as it is, sometimes like I don't want to be on this planet anymore. But like you got to keep going. Like we're only here once, as far as we know. We're only here once, and you just got to make the best of it. Like, and I think part of the human experience is getting to really experience all the emotions, the good and the bad. It's the yin and the yang. It's the balance that we talked about earlier. Like it always comes back to balance. It's to experience the full spectrum of everything. And that's why I'm never a big believer in the rich and the famous stuff. I don't think that's the goal in life. I really don't. And it's obviously, I'm not rich or famous, so it's obviously I'm going to say that, but like, it's still the belief of just the balance and like the connections that we have, and like nourishing those relationships with people that we care about, and experiencing love, experiencing loss, going through all these different things. And I think that's what makes a life worth living.
Wow. That was beautiful. Love all of that. But I agree. And I think that all ties back into nothing changes if nothing changes.
One of my favorite quotes lately. It's funny enough, I think it was Theo Vaughn. I don't know if you know that comedian. Yeah, you should check him out just to like see. Like he's not the type of guy that you would think would say a quote like this. But he's fun. He's a funny comedian. I like his podcast because he'll interview like the garbage man in his local community, and then interview like, I don't know, he interviewed like Dana White recently, or like Robert Kennedy Jr. Like he interviews wild people, but also he's not too big for the small person almost either. And I like that about him. But it was part of like a TikTok video, motivational video, and he was just kind of like, nothing changes or nothing changes. And like I've seen that quote before, and just like the way he said it, I don't even know, it just really resonated with me. And that's kind of been the mantra for this year, is like, I can't expect shit to be different if I'm not doing different shit. Like you have to do something different. Like, because if it's the definition of insanity. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, insanity. So if you want something different, do something different. And that's kind of been the vision for myself this year, and even subconsciously in years past, like adding stuff to the podcast all the time. Like I'm constantly adding something to change the visual, or change the audio, or change the brand in terms of merchandise and stuff like that. Like it's all about change at the end of the day and being willing to adapt. Like figure out what works, but also add. Like, and sometimes adding or subtracting is the adding. So that's where the taking that step back that we talked about earlier comes back. Is sometimes you have to take the step back to subtract some things and to move forward. And that's the addition by subtraction.
Even like you touched upon that job. Had you not changed that, not left, nothing would have changed.
Yeah, and I would have been out of a job because they furloughed everyone in 2020. Like this is what I'm saying. Where the divine timing really came in at that time was, if I stayed in Augusta, Georgia, stayed doing that job, it would have went into 2020. I would have got furloughed. I would have lost my job. I would have been stuck in Georgia by myself with no income and no passion at that point. So to take that leap of faith, to just know that I'm going to do something, and I'm a hard worker. I believe in myself as a person, so I knew I'd be fine regardless. I'd figure out a way. And I even went back to like my old job for like a month, just changing wheels and tires, just to make some money. But I wasn't going to just take a job to take a job when I got back. I was going to make money because I knew I needed to have money, but I wasn't going to just accept something just to do that. I waited for the right opportunity, and I've been with the same organization ever since then too. So it's kind of knowing yourself. Like it goes back to what we talked about earlier, even like terms of the fitness stuff. Like I always try to tie things back, but it's like really being self-aware and like trying to understand yourself in that way. And I'll always recommend therapy for people too that having a hard time working through those emotions and those feelings, because having someone that's going to give you unfiltered, raw, medical, like therapeutic advice, it's worth it. It's worth every dollar you pay for it, especially if you find the right therapist. And I always say therapy or finding your therapist is like dating. Try it for a few times, and if you don't connect with that person, move on. Go to a different therapist. And it's hard right now to find therapists, a good therapist, but that is kind of like always like my little 2 cents is everyone should at least try it at least once. I think it's worth experiencing to say that you've done it and to work stuff. And if you're gonna do it all the way through. Don't half-ass it. You have to go into therapy actually wanting to do that. And I don't think I would be as good as a communicator as I am with my podcast if I didn't do therapy.
Really? You think it helped you communicate? How so?
It got a lot of my thoughts out too, and like in a self excuse me, self-critical way, where I got to like really analyze my behaviors. I would like, for example, if I like had a bad interaction with someone and I knew it was bad, I would say what the interaction was. I would say my reason why for doing it, but also acknowledge that this was not a positive interaction for myself. I shouldn't have done that behavior, and that I need to maybe take the step back. Maybe I need to breathe a little bit more. Maybe I need to go work out, go for a run, do something different than that behavior. But working through that and like being able to talk through your stuff with someone, for me, worked really well because it just got it out there. That goes back to like very beginning of the podcast, talking about your stuff, like getting it out there, going to the journaling stuff, getting it out there. Like this stuff helps you. It makes you a more well-rounded individual. And for me, having that one-on-one with a therapist flew into my podcast in the sense that I've kind of made my podcast almost like a therapy session sometimes. Like people are getting out their most like vulnerable stuff about their lives. And I try to make that experience therapeutic as best I can.
Wow. No, I would agree that you do that. When I was on the podcast, I definitely felt that it was therapeutic. Felt comfortable enough to say anything, talk about my genuine story. I completely agree that you do a great job with that.
Yeah, it's trying to be just straight curious, and like I'm not trying to judge you for your life. I just want to hear about your life. I want to know why you're in the position that you're in now. Like how did you get there? Like I'm actually curious, and like I ask questions that, one, for my audience so they can hear the background, but two, that's why I try not to listen to stuff like that. You were doing a podcast at the time. I didn't want to listen to anything because I didn't want to spoil our genuine interaction. I wanted the real time like digestion of what you were going through, and I didn't want to get that from your podcast. I wanted to get that straight from you face to face, and I try my best to do that with every guest, is get that real authentic like face to face conversation and like hear their story for the first time.
I gotcha. Is Is there a reason you approached your podcast more aimed towards the guest as opposed to aimed towards yourself?
Yeah, I think in my life, I kind of always felt like not seen and not heard in terms of like who I was and how I felt as a person. Um, Probably just internal trauma that just like I had to work through. But I wanted other people to feel seen and heard. I wanted them to feel like they mattered. I wanted other people to feel like their life is worth like or their story is worth telling. Because I always say that we all have something that's worth sharing. You just got to unlock that for some people. Like some people might be doing something really dope and not realize that they're doing something really dope until you get them on the podcast and you get to like give. I would say I try to give people their flowers in real time. Like I don't want to like wait, knock on wood, for someone to pass and then say good things about them. I want to say good things about them to their face and off air and on air. And I think having that space to do that is definitely something that I've been appreciative of, is to make people feel valued in that space that I've created. And so I think that's kind of where I went with it, is just making people feel seen and heard.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I love that. Wow.
Yeah, it's
See,
definitely.
I
Go
never
ahead.
knew. I just never knew your reasoning. I knew you primarily wanted people to be able to tell their story, but I never knew like why.
Yeah, it stems from that. It's definitely like just like own personal stuff. It's I just want to highlight the good in people. Like I want to let people see the good stuff because there's good around us. We just got to find it.
That is so true. And I agree how you mentioned you never know like who is doing dope stuff. You know, Sean made the comment to me once, and I tell everybody this. Every single person you meet, you will learn something from. It doesn't matter who it is. And I have not met a single person that I haven't learned something from.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's also to build off that. You don't know what people are going through until you ask, and that's where the mental health stuff in the podcast comes through. Is like you gotta just ask the question. Like obviously, I always say if you're comfortable sharing. That's what I always say on every podcast is if you're comfortable sharing this, please do, because I think it's going to be beneficial for people. So it's allowing that space for people to feel comfortable to share pretty like vulnerable things, and I think that's worth mentioning too. Is just you don't know until you ask.
That's true. Another wonderful Jared Carroll quote. You don't know until you ask.
I'm
Hmm.
just following them. I'm just throwing them out today. We're really cooking on this episode with a chef hat.
I like that's true with everything though. I something I tend to say is the answer is always no if you don't ask.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that too.
They're not going to know what you want to know, what you want to ask. And then I had read somewhere the answer is always no if you don't ask, and I'm like, if I don't even ask, the answer is going to be no.
Yeah,
You know?
you just it's taking that chance. You got to take the chance. You got to take the risk. You like I always do callbacks. I'm always calling back to stuff. It's you got to make the connections. Like yeah, everything has to tie together.
Just like the Carroll Connection, huh?
There's always a connecting vibe.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Well, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners? Anything I didn't ask that you wished I would have?
I'll kind of leave them with a little of this. It's you got to start digging a little deeper into like yourself. Like we mentioned earlier, like going inwards. It's one of the hardest things to do in life, and it's a never ending thing to do. It's a never ending struggle. You always are constantly doing internal work. You might hear on the internet people talk about healing the inner child. I'm a big believer in that. Like we all have wounds from our childhood, whether we consciously know them or subconsciously know them. Try to get in touch with that. Try to heal that, because through this podcast, I've been able to touch on the side of myself that I really felt when I was younger. I have to find the video somewhere, and it's somewhere in the camera. My dad always used to have a camera when we were like a camcorder and would record us. And I was always like, put the camera on me. Like I want to be on the camera. I want to be recording or on camera talking or whatever. And through just kind of life, high school, middle school, just puberty, just going through different things. I lost that. Like I lost that self image of me of being so like joyful and happy and like wanting the center of attention. And I got in touch with that through the podcast. So I would say try to heal that inner child, and you might see that kind of rejoice energy flow into the creation that you make into the future, where now I'm able to be myself like I was when I was a kid, but also allow people to be seen and heard on top of that, and to do it for a reason that's valuable. And I think you should always try to find a reason that you're doing something. I'm not, this is like, especially when it's content related, like try to give it a purpose, try to talk about stuff that's valuable. Don't just talk to talk. We have enough podcasts out there where people are just talking about nothing. Like talk about something worth talking about and be passionate about it. Like you'll know when someone's passionate about something because they'll start lighting up. Like they'll be very animated in their facial features. Their voice will have certain inflections. Like you could tell when someone's really enjoying what they do. And I've learned that through the podcast. As soon as I go from talking about their family and like growing up to what they actually do, 100% change. People get so excited. They're loving the conversation because the beginning stuff is like kind of like getting to know the person, and it's tough stuff to talk about. But as soon as you talk about their passion, man, they light up differently, and everyone loves that. And it's worth spotlighting that. So like when you're trying to figure out what you want to do aside from maybe your day-to-day life or your day-to-day job, look at stuff around you. Look at the stuff you're interested in. Maybe you like video games. Maybe there's a way to do a podcast about video games. Maybe you're a streamer, or maybe you want to write. Maybe you want to write books. Maybe you like journaling. Start writing a book. Everyone can write a book if they tried. It's you just got it goes back to doing the research. Like all these different things will require different research for these different endeavors, and you just got to be willing to take that first step. And I think it was Mel Robbins on a podcast talk about this, and I've kind of had the same like this thought before, and I've referenced this too in terms of like life in hiking a mountain. And if you look straight up at the mountain the entire time you're hiking, you're gonna be like, damn, I'm never going to climb this mountain. But if you just look at it in front of you, one step at a time, before you know it, you're at the top of the damn mountain. So break it down. Don't do everything all at once, and give yourself some grace and some space to process the stuff that you go through, because you're going to have bad days. You're going to have mistakes and failures, but just don't give up. You'll climb that mountain.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on my podcast. And where can the listeners find you and connect with you?
Oh, I got this part nailed down. You can find me at the Carroll Connection.simplecast.com. Also, we have Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carroll Connection, or at Jared Carroll. It should pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest on the Carroll Connection, hit me up on Instagram at Jared Carroll, at the Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me on this podcast. It's not too often that I get to be a guest, so it's cool to be on the receiving end, because it in turn makes me a better podcast host as well.
Of course. I'm so glad we got to do this. And thank you guys for listening to another episode of Manda's Mindset. As always, if you enjoyed the show, if you would like it, subscribe, rate it, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it. Thanks, guys. Until next time.